I never thought I would need an evidence binder to survive my neighborhood. I'm standing on my front porch when Lori Hastings storms up my driveway with her phone held out like a weapon and her voice already at full volume. You stole your own package to make it look like someone else did it. I have proof. I'm documenting everything. She jabs the screen toward my face but keeps it tilted away so I can't actually see what's on it. The box arrived this morning and now it's gone, and your camera angle is suspicious. I work as a cable installer in Houston, Texas, and I've dealt with a lot of angry customers, but this is something else. This is Lori Hastings, treasurer of the Copper Creek Estates HOA, and she's convinced I'm running some kind of insurance scam over a missing package of door hardware. I don't even have theft coverage on my homeowner's policy. I try to explain that, but she cuts me off. I'm the reason this place stays safe. If you think you can commit fraud in my community, you are wrong. She pulls a bright orange cone out of her car and sets it down on my driveway like she's cordoning off a crime scene. The package in question is a box of replacement deadbolts and striker plates I ordered for a side project. I run a small home-based consulting gig helping landlords upgrade their rental units, and the HOA already knows about it because I got the business license approved 6 months ago. Lori has hated that license from day one. She tried to block it at the approval hearing by claiming my work trucks would congest the street. But I don't even own a work truck. I drive a sedan. The license passed anyway, and she's been looking for an angle ever since. Now she has one. Someone posted a blurry clip from a doorbell camera in the neighborhood watch group last night, and Lori insists it's my porch without letting anyone zoom in or enhance the image. The timestamp bar is visible, but it's unreadable in the compressed video. She's holding her phone in landscape mode, and every time I lean in to look, she pulls it back. You don't get to examine the evidence until the hearing. That's how this works. There's no hearing scheduled. I checked the HOA portal this morning and there's nothing on the calendar. I tell her that and she smirks. Oh, there will be. I'm filing the complaint form this afternoon and you'll get the notice by end of business. In the meantime, you're not allowed to use the clubhouse or the pool until this is resolved. She pulls a folded paper from her jacket pocket and hands it to me. It's a printed notice on Copper Creek Estates letterhead with today's date and a paragraph about suspension of amenity privileges pending investigation of theft-related conduct. The signature line is blank. I ask her who authorized this, and she taps the cheap plastic badge clipped to her jacket collar. I did. I'm an officer of the board. She turns and walks back to her car, but leaves the orange cone sitting in my driveway like a monument. I spend the next hour trying to piece together what actually happened. The tracking app shows the package was delivered at 9:42 this morning and marked as left at front door. My porch camera didn't catch the delivery because the driver came from the side gate, which is the route they use when the main walkway is blocked by lawn equipment. The camera angle covers the front door and the steps, but not the side approach. By the time I got home at 11:15, the package was gone. I assumed it got stolen, which happens sometimes in this neighborhood, and I filed a claim with the vendor for a replacement shipment. That's it. No police report, no insurance claim, no fraud. Just a missing box and a frustrated email to customer service. But Lori has turned it into a referendum on my character and my business license. I call my buddy Mike, a contractor who's done work in Copper Creek before and knows the HOA drama landscape. He tells me Lori has a reputation for going after people she doesn't like and making their lives miserable until they either move or give up. Last year, she tried to get a family evicted because their teenager's car didn't have a current registration sticker, and she claimed it violated the community standards. The family fought it and won, but it cost them thousands in legal fees. Mike says if Lori is coming after my business license, she's going to stack violations until something sticks. The missing package is just the opening move. He offers to ask around and see if anyone else has had weird delivery problems lately. I thank him and hang up feeling like I just got drafted into a war I didn't know existed. That afternoon, I get an email from the HOA management company with a PDF attachment. It's a formal complaint form accusing me of staging a theft, filing a false vendor claim, and using my business license as a cover for fraudulent activity. The form is dated 3 days ago. I read that twice to make sure I'm not misunderstanding. The complaint form is dated 3 days ago, but the package only went missing this morning. I screenshot the email header with the timestamp and the PDF metadata showing the creation date. The file was created today at 1:50 p.m. Lori backdated the form to make it look like I ignored a deadline. I'm staring at my laptop screen trying to figure out how she thought this would work when my phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. It's a photo of my driveway taken from across the street with the orange cone still sitting there, and a caption that says compliance checkpoint active per board authority. I walk outside and pick up the cone. It's a standard traffic cone with no HOA markings. I put it in my garage and go back inside. 10 minutes later, there's a knock on my door. It's Lori again, this time with a younger guy in a security company polo shirt. She's pointing at my garage and talking fast. He took the cone, that's HOA property, and he removed it from an active enforcement zone. The security guy looks uncomfortable. He tells me the HOA contracts his company for overnight patrols and special events, but he's not authorized to enforce code violations or retrieve property during the day. Lori cuts him off. I'm authorizing it right now. Remove him from the clubhouse access list and notify the gate attendant that he's restricted. The security guy looks at me and shrugs. I'll pass it along, but you'll need to talk to management about access changes. Lori glares at him like he just committed treason. Fine, I'll handle it myself. She turns to me and holds up her phone again. I have the doorbell clip queued up. Do you want to see it or not? I say yes and step closer. She tilts the screen just enough for me to catch a blurry view of a porch that might be mine and a figure in dark clothing bending over a box. The timestamp strip is visible at the bottom, but the resolution is so low I can't read the numbers. I ask her to pause it so I can get a better look. She locks the screen and puts the phone in her pocket. You had your chance. This goes to the board investigator tomorrow, and you'll get a copy of the findings when the hearing notice is issued. I ask who the board investigator is, and she smiles. Me. I'm the treasurer, so I handle financial misconduct and fraud cases. She walks back to her car with the security guy trailing behind her, looking like he wants to be anywhere else. I spend the evening digging through the HOA bylaws and the Texas Property Code, trying to figure out what authority Lori actually has. The short answer is not much. The treasurer role gives her oversight of the HOA budget and financial records, but it doesn't grant unilateral enforcement power. Any suspension of amenities or access restrictions has to be approved by a majority vote of the board. And even then, the homeowner gets written notice and a chance to respond before it takes effect. Lori is acting like she's the entire board. I draft an email to the property management company asking for clarification on the complaint process and the access suspension. I attach the screenshot showing the backdated form and ask them to confirm whether the board voted on any enforcement action against me. I hit send and immediately get an auto reply saying the office is closed until Monday. It's Thursday night. Friday morning, I wake up to another email. This one is from the management company's regional supervisor, and it's marked urgent. There's a compliance review meeting scheduled for Monday at 10 a.m. at the management office, and my attendance is required to address outstanding violations. The email lists 3 items: unauthorized business activity, theft-related conduct, and obstruction of board enforcement. I've never seen the term obstruction of board enforcement in any HOA document. I call the management office and get transferred twice before reaching a receptionist who sounds annoyed. She tells me the meeting was requested by the board treasurer and the supervisor is only in town today, so this is my one chance to get eyes on the file. I ask if I can come in this afternoon to review the file before Monday. She says the office is open until 4 and I'm welcome to request copies of any documents under the records access policy. I get to the management office at 2:30 and the receptionist pulls a thin file folder with my address on the tab. Inside are 3 documents: the backdated complaint form, a printed copy of the blurry doorbell clip screenshot, and a vendor invoice packet with sections covered by sticky notes. I ask if I can make copies and she nods. I take photos of everything with my phone, including the sticky notes. When I peel one back, I see a line item for Clubhouse Supply restocking with a credit card number partially visible. The sticky note wasn't covering sensitive information. It was covering a discrepancy. The invoice shows 2 separate charges for the same supply order placed a week apart. I take another photo and put the sticky note back. The receptionist is watching me. She lowers her voice. You didn't hear this from me, but Lori has been doing her own purchasing for the clubhouse and submitting reimbursements without board approval. We flagged it twice and she keeps saying she'll clean it up, but it never gets resolved. I ask if the board knows and she shrugs. They get monthly reports, but I don't think anyone actually reads them. I thank her and ask if I can get a copy of the full vendor invoice without the redactions. She hesitates. I can print you the version we have on file, but if there are discrepancies, you'll need to request a reconciliation from the treasurer. That's going to be a problem since the treasurer is the one creating the discrepancies, but I don't say that out loud. I take the printed copy and leave. Back at home, I spread the documents on my kitchen table and start building a timeline. The doorbell clip screenshot is dated the same day my package went missing, but the image metadata shows it was captured from a still frame of a video file that was created 2 days earlier. Someone recorded a video 2 days ago, extracted a frame this morning, and then tried to pass it off as live footage of my porch. I don't know whose porch is actually in the video, but it's not mine. My front door is painted blue, and the door in the screenshot is white. I pull up my own doorbell camera app and scroll back through the last week looking for anything unusual. On Tuesday afternoon, there's a clip of Lori walking up my driveway while I'm at work. She's carrying a shopping bag, and she stops at my porch. She looks around, sets the bag down, and takes a photo with her phone. Then she picks up the bag and leaves. The whole interaction lasts maybe 40 seconds. I watched the clip 3 more times trying to figure out what she was doing. The angle doesn't show what's in the bag or what she was photographing, but the timestamp is clear. Tuesday at 3:17 p.m. That's 2 days before my package went missing. I screenshot the clip and add it to my evidence folder. Then I call Mike and ask if he's heard anything. He says he talked to a couple of vendors who service Copper Creek, and one of them mentioned that Lori has been acting weird around deliveries lately. The vendor wouldn't give details, but he said if I wanted to know more, I should talk to the clubhouse maintenance guy who quit last month. Mike doesn't have the guy's contact info, but he knows someone who might. Saturday morning, I get a text from Mike with a phone number and a name, Gary. I call and leave a voicemail explaining that I'm dealing with an HOA issue involving Lori Hastings, and I'd appreciate any insight he can share. Gary calls back 20 minutes later, and he sounds exhausted. He tells me he worked as the clubhouse maintenance contractor for Copper Creek for 2 years and quit because Lori made the job impossible. She would order supplies through the HOA account and then take half of them home. When he tried to reconcile the inventory, she accused him of stealing and threatened to report him to the management company. He didn't want the hassle, so he walked. He says he's willing to talk, but only if his name stays out of it. I promise him I won't use his name in any official complaint, and he relaxes a little. Gary tells me Lori has been skimming from the HOA budget for at least a year. She orders supplies in bulk, takes what she wants, and then files reimbursement requests for the full amount. The management company processes the reimbursements because the invoices look legitimate, and by the time anyone notices the discrepancies, Lori has already blamed it on vendor errors or clerical mistakes. He says she also has a habit of taking packages from the clubhouse mailroom if they look interesting. Most residents don't complain because they assume the package was misdelivered or stolen by a porch pirate. Gary saw her pocket a set of keys from the pool storage closet once, and when he asked about it, she said she was securing them for safety reasons. The keys never came back. If you are enjoying this story, hit the like button and subscribe, because I have more HOA drama coming your way. I asked Gary if he kept any records, and he says he has photos of the inventory spreadsheets and copies of the invoices Lori submitted. He offers to email them to me, and I give him my address. He warns me that going after Lori is going to be brutal because she has the board convinced she's protecting the community from bad actors. She's already framed 2 other residents for violations they didn't commit, and both of them ended up moving rather than fight it. I thank him for the heads up and we hang up. An hour later, I get an email with a zip file containing about 30 pages of scanned documents. I open the first one and see a vendor invoice for cleaning supplies with a handwritten note in the margin that says delivered short, credit pending. The invoice total is $800. The next page is a photo of the actual delivery, 6 bottles of cleaner and a case of paper towels. Nowhere near $800 worth of supplies. Sunday afternoon, I get a call from an unknown number. It's a woman who says her name is Janet and she lives 2 streets over in Copper Creek. She heard through the neighborhood grapevine that I'm having trouble with Lori and she wants to help. Janet tells me Lori accused her of violating the guest parking policy last year and tried to get her car towed even though Janet's guests were parked legally in the visitor spaces. Lori claimed the spaces were reserved for clubhouse events and Janet's guests were blocking access. There was no event that day. Janet fought the tow threat and won, but only after hiring an attorney and spending $3,000. She says Lori has a pattern of targeting people she perceives as threats to her authority, and once she picks a target, she doesn't stop until she wins or gets exposed. Janet offers to show up at my compliance meeting Monday as a witness if I need someone to back up my version of events. I tell her I appreciate it, and I'll let her know. That night, I put together a binder with everything I've collected, the backdated complaint form with the metadata screenshot, the doorbell clip showing Lori on my porch 2 days before the package went missing, the vendor invoices Gary sent with the discrepancies highlighted, and the sticky note covered OIS from the management office file. I print a side-by-side comparison of the 2 complaint forms showing the creation date versus the printed date. I add a timeline page with key events marked in red. The binder is about 1 inch thick and it feels like a weapon. I'm not a lawyer and I'm not an investigator, but I know how to build a case file for a service dispute, and this is the same process. Document everything, highlight the contradictions, and let the evidence speak. Monday morning, I arrive at the management office at 9:50. The lobby is small with a reception desk and a row of chairs along the wall. Lori is already there, sitting in the corner with her portable thermal printer on her lap and a stack of papers beside her. She sees me and immediately starts tapping on the printer like she's preparing another notice. The receptionist waves me over and tells me the supervisor is running a few minutes late, but he'll be with us shortly. I sit down 2 chairs away from Lori and set my binder on my knees. Lori glances at it and her expression tightens. What's that? I tell her it's my evidence for the meeting. She scoffs. You don't get to present evidence. This is a compliance review, not a trial. I don't respond. I just hold the binder and wait. The supervisor comes out at 10:15 and introduces himself as Paul. He's a middle-aged guy in a golf shirt and khakis with a tired look that says he's done this 100 times. He invites us into a small conference room and closes the door. Lori immediately launches into her presentation. She pulls out her phone and starts reading from her notes like she's delivering a closing argument. The resident in question has engaged in a pattern of deceptive conduct, including staging a theft to defraud a vendor, operating an unapproved business in violation of community standards, and obstructing board enforcement by removing official markers. She taps her plastic badge for emphasis. I have documented every incident and I'm recommending immediate revocation of his business license and suspension of all HOA privileges pending a full board vote. Paul looks at me. Do you want to respond? I open my binder and slide the first page across the table. It's the side-by-side comparison of the complaint forms with the metadata screenshot. I explain that Lori backdated the complaint to make it look like I ignored a prior notice, but the file was actually created the same day the package went missing. Paul studies the page and then looks at Lori. Is this accurate? Lori's face flushes. The date on the form reflects when I first observed the suspicious activity, not when I filed it. That's standard procedure. Paul flips through the HOA policy manual on his desk. I'm not seeing anything in here about backdating forms. Can you show me where that's documented? Lori pivots. She pulls up the doorbell clip on her phone and holds it out. This is video evidence of the resident staging a theft. You can clearly see him placing a package on his porch and then later claiming it was stolen. Paul leans forward to look at the screen. Can you zoom in on the timestamp? Lori pulls the phone back. The resolution doesn't support zooming. The important part is the activity, not the timestamp. I slide the second page across the table. It's a screenshot of the doorbell clip metadata showing the video file was created 2 days before my package was delivered. I also include a photo of my blue front door next to the white door visible in Lori's clip. Paul compares the images and sets them down. This doesn't appear to be the same location. Lori stands up. That's because he tampered with the footage. He edited the metadata to cover his tracks. Paul raises his hand. Let's take a step back. Do you have the original video file or just the screenshot? Lori hesitates. I have what I need to prove misconduct. Paul's tone shifts. I need to see the original file with the full timestamp and metadata, or I can't consider this as evidence. Lori sits back down and crosses her arms. Fine, I'll get the original from the homeowner who submitted it. Paul makes a note. In the meantime, let's address the other claims. What's the basis for the business license revocation? Lori pulls out a printed copy of my business license approval and points to a clause about limiting commercial vehicle traffic. He's been running a business out of his home and it's causing congestion. Paul looks at me. How many vehicles do you operate? I tell him I drive a sedan and I don't keep inventory or equipment at the house. My clients are landlords and I meet them at their properties. Paul makes another note. That doesn't sound like a violation. Do you have evidence of congestion? Lori pulls out her phone again and starts scrolling. I have complaints from neighbors about increased traffic. Paul asks to see them. Lori hesitates again. They were verbal complaints. I documented them in my notes. Paul closes the policy manual. Verbal complaints aren't sufficient for enforcement action. I'll need written statements from the neighbors with dates and details. Lori's voice gets louder. I'm an officer of this board and my documentation is sufficient. Paul shakes his head. Your role as treasurer doesn't grant you unilateral enforcement authority. Any suspension of privileges or license revocation requires a board vote with proper notice to the homeowner. Lori slams her hand on the table. I'm documenting everything. This resident is a threat to the community, and if you won't take action, I'll escalate it to the full board. Paul turns to me. Do you have anything else to add? I slide the vendor invoice packet across the table and explain the discrepancies. I point out the sticky notes covering the duplicate charges and the reimbursement requests that don't match the delivery records. I mention Gary's testimony without using his name. Paul flips through the pages slowly. His expression goes from neutral to concerned. Lori interrupts. Those invoices are confidential financial records, and he doesn't have authorization to access them. Paul looks up. These were in the homeowner file that he requested under the records access policy. They're not confidential if they're part of an enforcement action against him. Lori's face goes pale. She stands up again. This meeting is over. I'm filing a formal complaint with the board, and the homeowner will receive a hearing notice within 10 days. Paul stops her. Actually, this meeting isn't over. Based on what I'm seeing here, there are serious questions about the complaint process and the evidence you've presented. I'm putting a hold on all enforcement actions pending a full review by the board and the management company. Lori stares at him. You don't have the authority to do that. Paul pulls out a copy of the management contract. I'm the regional supervisor, and I absolutely have the authority to suspend enforcement actions when there's evidence of procedural violations. You'll get a written summary of my findings by end of business today. Lori grabs her printer and papers and storms out of the room. The door slams so hard the window blind rattles. Paul looks at me and exhales. I'm sorry you got caught up in this. Off the record, we've had concerns about the treasurer's conduct for a while, but we haven't had enough evidence to bring it to the board. What you've shown me today is going to trigger an internal audit. I ask what happens next, and he says the board will be notified of the hold and they'll schedule a special meeting to review the findings. In the meantime, my access privileges are restored and the complaint is suspended. He hands me a printed memo confirming the hold and apologizes again. I thank him and leave with my binder, feeling like I just survived a cross-examination. I drive home feeling cautiously optimistic, but not convinced it's over. Lori is not the type to accept defeat quietly. I text Mike and Janet to update them, and they both respond with congratulations and warnings to stay alert. Mike says he'll keep asking around to see if anyone else has had issues with Lori. Janet says she'll attend the board meeting when it happens, and she'll bring her attorney if needed. I tell them I appreciate the backup, and I'll let them know when the meeting is scheduled. That afternoon, I get an email from Paul with a summary of the meeting and a formal notice that the enforcement action has been suspended pending board review. The email includes a line that says the board treasurer has been advised to cease all direct contact with me regarding this matter. I screenshot it and add it to my binder. Tuesday morning, I'm leaving for work when I see Lori's car parked at the end of my street. She's sitting in the driver's seat with her phone out, and she's pointing it toward my house. I walk over and knock on her window. She rolls it down halfway. Can I help you? I ask what she's doing, and she smiles. I'm monitoring compliance activity. It's part of my duties as treasurer. I remind her about the no contact notice from Paul. She waves it off. That only applies to enforcement discussions. I'm allowed to observe public spaces. I take a photo of her car with my phone, and she immediately starts her engine. You're harassing a board officer. I'm documenting everything. She drives off before I can respond. I call Paul and leave a voicemail about the incident. He calls back an hour later and says he'll send Lori a follow-up email clarifying that monitoring my property is considered harassment under the management contract. He also mentions that the board president reached out this morning asking for details about the complaint suspension. Paul told him everything, and the president scheduled an emergency board meeting for Thursday night. Paul says I'm welcome to attend and present my evidence if I want, but it's not required. I tell him I'll be there. Wednesday afternoon, I get a package delivery. It's the replacement door hardware I ordered after the first box went missing. I'm standing on my porch, opening the box when a pickup truck pulls up and a guy in a contractor vest gets out. He walks over and introduces himself as Tim. He says he's been working in Copper Creek for a few months doing renovation jobs, and he saw Lori take something from my porch last week. He didn't think much of it at the time because he assumed she was a neighbor helping me out, but after hearing about the HOA drama through the contractor network, he realized it might be relevant. I ask him what he saw, and he says Lori pulled up in her car, walked up to my porch, picked up a package, and put it in her trunk. Then she took a photo of the empty porch and left. Tim says he feels guilty for not saying something sooner, but he didn't know it was a problem until now. I ask if he'd be willing to testify about what he saw, and he hesitates. I don't want to get dragged into a legal mess, but if you need a witness statement, I can write something down. I tell him that would be incredibly helpful, and he pulls out his phone. He types up a quick paragraph describing what he saw, includes the date and approximate time, and emails it to me. I thank him, and he says good luck. As he's walking back to his truck, he turns around. Oh, one more thing. I saw her do the same thing at another house a few blocks over about a month ago. I don't know who lives there, but it's the corner unit with the red mailbox. Might be worth checking out. He drives off, and I'm left standing on my porch holding a box of door hardware and a growing sense that this is bigger than I thought. Thursday evening, I arrive at the clubhouse for the board meeting 30 minutes early. The parking lot is already half full, and I recognize a few faces from the neighborhood. Janet is there with a folder under her arm, and she waves me over. She introduces me to another resident named Mark, who says he was on the board 2 years ago before Lori ran him off with constant complaints about his dog. Mark says Lori has a habit of turning board meetings into personal vendettas, and the only way to fight back is to stay calm and stick to the facts. He offers to sit with me during the meeting, and I accept. We find seats near the front and wait for the board to arrive. Lori shows up 10 minutes before the meeting starts. She's carrying a file box and she sets it down on the front table with a loud thump. She sees me and her expression hardens. She walks over and leans in close. You think you've won, but you haven't. I have a witness who saw you tampering with your porch camera, and I'm going to prove you staged the whole thing. I ask who the witness is, and she smirks. You'll find out soon enough. She walks back to the table and starts arranging papers. Janet leans over and whispers that Lori is bluffing. She always claims to have witnesses, and they never materialize. I hope she's right. The board president calls the meeting to order and runs through the standard agenda items. When we get to new business, he announces that there's a special review of a suspended enforcement action, and he invites Paul to present his findings. Paul stands up and summarizes the compliance meeting, the procedural violations, and the evidence discrepancies. He mentions the backdated complaint, the mismatched doorbell footage, and the vendor invoice irregularities. He concludes by recommending that the board conduct a full audit of the treasurer's records and implement stricter oversight for enforcement actions. The room is silent when he finishes. The board president asks Lori if she has a response. She stands up and pulls out her phone. She tries to play the doorbell clip on speaker, but the audio is muted. She fumbles with the volume and finally gets it working. The clip plays for about 5 seconds before she pauses it. This footage clearly shows fraudulent activity, and I stand by my complaint. The board president asks if she has the original file with the full metadata. Lori says the homeowner who provided it is out of town and she'll get it next week. The board president shakes his head. We can't proceed without the original evidence. Do you have anything else? Lori pulls out a printed document. I have a witness statement from a neighbor who saw the resident acting suspiciously on the day in question. She reads from the paper. The witness observed the resident moving a package from his porch to his garage in a manner consistent with staging a theft. Mark stands up. Can we see the witness statement? Lori clutches the paper. It's confidential to protect the witness's identity. The board president interrupts. If it's being used as evidence, it has to be disclosed. Lori hesitates and then hands the paper to the president. He reads it and his eyebrows go up. This statement isn't signed and there's no contact information. How do we verify it? Lori's voice cracks. The witness requested anonymity due to fear of retaliation. The board president sets the paper down. That's not sufficient. Do you have any other evidence? I stand up and ask if I can present my evidence. The board president nods. I walk to the front and open my binder. I go through each page slowly, the backdated complaint with the metadata proof, the doorbell clip discrepancy, the vendor invoices with the duplicate charges, Tim's witness statement about seeing Lori take a package from my porch, and the timeline showing Lori's visit 2 days before the theft. I finish by pulling out my phone and playing the doorbell camera clip of Lori on my porch with the shopping bag. The room is completely silent. I look at Lori and her face is bright red. She starts to say something, but the board president cuts her off. We'll take a short recess to review this information. Everyone, stay seated. During the recess, Janet leans over and says that was perfect. Mark agrees. He says Lori has never been challenged this directly in a public meeting, and she's clearly panicking. I see Lori talking to another board member near the door. She's gesturing wildly, and the board member keeps shaking his head. After 10 minutes, the board president calls us back to order. He announces that based on the evidence presented, the board is voting to overturn the enforcement action, restore my full HOA privileges, and initiate a formal audit of the treasurer's financial records. He also announces that Lori is being temporarily removed from enforcement duties pending the audit results. The vote is unanimous. Lori's mouth drops open. She stands up and tries to object, but the board president gavels her down. The decision is final. You'll receive written notice tomorrow. Lori grabs her file box and storms toward the exit. As she's passing my row, she stops and glares at me. You think you've won, but you haven't. I'm going to appeal this, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. Before I can respond, Janet stands up. Actually, Lori, everyone already knows what kind of person you are. A resident in the back row starts clapping. Then another. Within seconds, half the room is applauding. Lori's face goes from red to white. She turns and walks out without another word. The door slams and the applause fades into relieved laughter. After the meeting, I talk to Paul and the board president. Paul tells me the audit will take about 2 weeks and the findings will be shared with the full board. If there's evidence of misappropriation or fraud, the board will refer it to law enforcement. The board president apologizes for what I went through and says the board is implementing new policies to prevent this kind of abuse in the future. He also mentions that several residents have come forward with similar stories about Lori, and they're all being reviewed as part of the audit. I thank him and walk out to the parking lot feeling like I just crossed a finish line I didn't know existed. The next morning, I get an email from the management company. It's a formal notice confirming that the enforcement action has been overturned, my business license is valid, and all suspended privileges have been restored. The email also includes a refund of the $50 administrative fee I was charged when the complaint was filed. At the bottom, there's a note from Paul saying the board voted to place a hold on all new enforcement actions initiated by the treasurer pending the audit results. I screenshot the email and send it to Mike and Janet. Mike responds with a thumbs up emoji. Janet sends back a message saying she heard through the grapevine that Lori tried to call an emergency board meeting to contest the vote, and the board president shut her down. Over the next 2 weeks, the neighborhood is buzzing with rumors about the audit. I hear from multiple people that Lori has been confronted by other board members, and she's been refusing to cooperate. Mark tells me the audit uncovered thousands of dollars in unexplained charges and missing inventory. Paul confirms that the board has referred the findings to the local police and an investigation is underway. I'm not directly involved at this point, but I keep my evidence binder updated just in case. 3 weeks after the board meeting, I get a call from a detective with the Houston Police Department. He says they're investigating allegations of theft and fraud involving the Copper Creek Estates HOA, and he'd like to ask me a few questions. I agree to meet him at the station the next day. When I arrive, he takes me into an interview room and pulls out a file. He tells me Lori Hastings has been charged with theft and misappropriation of HOA funds based on evidence collected during the audit. The charges include stealing packages from residents' porches, taking supplies from the clubhouse, and submitting fraudulent reimbursement requests. The detective says my doorbell footage and the vendor invoices I provided were key pieces of evidence. He asks if I'm willing to testify if the case goes to trial, and I say yes. The detective also tells me they recovered a storage unit rented by Lori that was full of stolen items, packages, clubhouse supplies, tools, even a set of pool keys that had been reported missing months ago. He shows me a photo of the unit, and I recognize the box of door hardware that went missing from my porch. It's sitting on a shelf next to a stack of other unopened packages. The detective says they're working on returning everything to the rightful owners, and the HOA is cooperating fully. I thank him for the update, and he says I'll get a formal witness notification if they need me for trial. A week later, the HOA sends out a community-wide email announcing that Lori Hastings has resigned from the board effective immediately, and the board has voted to ban her from all enforcement activities permanently. The email also announces that the audit identified significant financial discrepancies, and the board is working with law enforcement to recover the missing funds. Residents who believe they were targeted by fraudulent enforcement actions are encouraged to contact the management company for a review. The email ends with an apology from the board president and a promise to implement stronger oversight policies. I'm sitting on my porch reading the email when my phone buzzes. It's a text from Janet. "Did you see the email?" "Justice served." I respond with a simple thumbs up. Then I get another text from Mike. "I heard Lori tried to blame the whole thing on a clerical error and the cops laughed her out of the station." I don't know if that's true, but it sounds about right. I lean back in my chair and look out at the street. The bright orange cone is long gone. The package drama is over. My business license is safe. And Lori Hastings is facing real consequences for the first time in her HOA career. The portal export that showed the complaint forms were uploaded from one device became a key piece of evidence in the criminal case. The timestamp data proved Lori was the only person with access to the account when the backdated form was created. Karen's timeline was proven false with the metadata analysis and the witness statements. The HOA refunded the administrative fee and issued a formal apology letter. They also put a hold on all future enforcement fees pending a complete review of their policies. Lori tried to repeat her threat about escalating to the full board during one of the final confrontations, but the detective had a recorder running, and everyone heard it. That recording became Exhibit F in the case file. The best part came a month later when I ran into the contractor Tim at a hardware store. He told me Lori had tried to recruit him as a witness in her defense by offering to pay him cash under the table. He reported it to the detective and it got added to the obstruction charges. Tim said he felt good about finally speaking up because he'd watched Lori bully people for months and he was tired of it. We shook hands and he bought me a coffee. It felt like the universe was finally balanced. I'm still living in Copper Creek Estates and I still run my home-based business. The new board treasurer is a retired accountant who actually reads the financial reports and asks questions. The clubhouse has a new inventory system with barcode scanning and monthly audits. And every time I see a package on my porch, I take a photo of it with a timestamp, just in case. Old habits die hard. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.